to the boardroom. This is the Business of Esports. The worlds of gaming and esports are evolving every day faster than ever before. With YouGov's living data, you can probe into the real thoughts and behaviors of esports fans and gamers worldwide. If you're a team, a brand, an agency, or a rights holder, you should be talking with YouGov. They're partners with the biggest names in esports and the biggest brands all around the world, driving compelling results every single day. Check out yougov.com/BOE and schedule a call with YouGov today. From the keyboard to the boardroom, this is the Business of Esports weekly news show / post podcast live stream. I am Paul Dawalibi. I'm joined today by my friends and co-hosts, the Honorable Judge Jimmy Baratta, Jeff the Juice Cohen, Chris O'Coins Laporte, Ben Pero from YouGov. Ben, you need a nickname.
I do need.
For those of you who,
I'll put my data hat on. I'll just be the data guy. I'll do that one.
The data guy. For those of you who are new here, welcome to the official podcast of esports. What we do is we cover the most pressing gaming and esports topics and news of the week, but we look at all of it through a business and C-suite lens. We dissect, we analyze the business implications of everything happening in this industry, and best of all, we get to do it live with you guys. So we encourage you to get involved, get in our faces, ask us questions, challenge us. All of it is very welcome. It's a safe space. But if you want to lurk, and we know so many of you do, that's okay too. We still appreciate you all being here. How is everyone doing today? This is a big cast today. I love this.
This is Lindsay's spot, but man, this is crazy. I feel like it's like the Avengers of esports here. I mean, had I known that we were having all these guests, I might have just dipped out. I'm like intimidated by all the knowledge on this panel today.
This group right here can take on the Golden State Warriors. We're ready.
Yeah,
we're ready.
Is that a meat sport? Who are the Warriors?
Issei says, hi there. Welcome, Issei. Welcome. Matt, full house today. Isn't it past your bedtime, Mr. Prophet? Matt, the commitment to the live stream, I actually went to bed and woke up for this. So the sun is not up yet, but I am here and so happy to be here.
The sun's always up in the metaverse, right?
That's it. Somewhere. And Issei says, Ben, big data Pero. There you go. I kind of like that. We may have.
I kind of like that too, actually. I'm not gonna lie, that's a good one.
Matt says a true man of the people. Matt, you know it. We appreciate all of you guys being here. We have so much to talk about today, and we have a YouGov Insights segment, which I'm so excited about. I just want to tease the podcast this week, as I normally do, before we jump into any news. The man on the podcast this week is right below me. It's Chris Laporte. Very fun episode talking about gambling in esports, talking about Vegas in esports, talking about cannabis in esports. So much fun stuff that we covered in an hour. I highly recommend tuning into that, guys. It's going to be, it was a really great episode. And Chris, longtime fan of the show, always has a hot take. I mean, there's no avoiding it. So
no filter report. We're ready.
That's it. Adam says, you may now start the podcast. I'm here, Adam. That's it. We'll start right now. Issei says, this will be interesting. This should be an interesting episode. This is not going to be our usual weekly news show. So you can't tune away. Guys, we got so much news to talk about. So let's jump into it because I want to get to all of it. I want to make sure we hit all of it. I want to start with interesting news out of Activision Blizzard, and it's maybe not what everyone's expecting because I feel like this story flew under the radar a little bit. And the headline here was Modern Warfare 2 increases price of game $10 over previous years. So $70 is now the minimum to buy Call of Duty. So there's going to be, 2 editions, the base cheapest edition, which is 70, and the Vault edition, like the deluxe, which is 99. And there's no $60 edition anymore. Now, what's interesting is there's some numbers in here. The franchise has earned more than $30 billion. They've sold 425 million premium game copies and 125 million on Warzone. So, curious what you guys think of. Call it Call of Duty going in the opposite direction of the industry here, right? Like we're seeing almost everything go free to play or play to earn or like some version of a new business model, and Call of Duty sticking with the box copy price and in fact raising it. Chris, maybe start with you. Why you think they're out to lunch here? Is Call of Duty gone crazy?
No, not at all. I mean, at the end of the day, we have PlayStation 5, we have Xbox Series X. This is now premium time. We've been spending $59.99 to $69.99 since Super Nintendo days. Look up a Toys R Us circular from 30 years ago. And I mean, I spent $90 on a Street Fighter 2 cartridge once upon a time. The reality is the popularity of this game is massive. Everyone's waiting for Modern Warfare 2. And, get squeezed that profit margin while you can.
I mean, what I'm hearing is that because they can, they should. Then everyone will just pay for it anyways. Anyone have a different take on this or thought on this? Or everyone thinks Activision Blizzard should just profit from the popularity of their franchise?
No,
Jeff?
I think Chris is absolutely right. I mean, number one, this is a little bit of a joke, but obviously we're seeing inflation everywhere. So why not in video games? I'll take the easy joke. Sorry, someone had to do it. But Chris is right. I mean, games have been $60 literally since like the initial Xbox. Like I remember they were $50 at one point, and then they bumped to 60, like actually probably 15 or 20 years ago, and have been $60 since then. So I don't think I think we're past due probably a little bit of a price bump. And still, if you look at entertainment dollar per hour, games are one of the best values out there, period. So I think for big titles like this, like the sports games, the games that people are going to buy year in, year out, it makes sense to see this sort of ultra premium SKU being added, and then you'll have free to play for everything else. And I think that's kind of like where the market is. It's bifurcating between like a lot of games that are out there that people play once and then throw away, and sort of these live service games that know that they can charge you pretty much whatever they want. So Call of Duty's in that latter camp, and they have the right to do it.
Does no one think though they could make more money going free to play?
I was going to say I might be the one guy in the room with the unpopular opinion here. I wouldn't say out to lunch. It's just a very interesting move at a very questionable time. You guys make a great argument that the price has been this way. It's been fixed for a long time, and it's a long time coming. But, okay, so let's do it now while we're potentially alienating our user base with all the bad press that they've just gone through, while we're going over a company takeover, or not takeover, but while they're being absorbed and taken over by Microsoft, and kind of going to have new management, conceivably new games, new people running things at these studios. At the same time, you have other free-to-play games that are performing just as good, if not better, that are super exciting, that are capturing first-person shooter audiences and gamers. For me, I would say, what are you doing increasing the price, especially in middle America that can't afford the current, raises in gas, let alone a luxury or some type of form of entertainment? You should be going free to play and then, making it up on the microtransactions. I thought Fortnite set that model pretty clearly. And I thought it was same thing with the music industry, right? When they got rid of the price of CDs and instead went on a subscription service, that was a really successful thing for them. It got rid of pirating. It kind of lowered the barrier to entry. We have so many great comments on chat here, though. I don't want to dominate the conversation, but my perspective is I would have gone the other way with it.
Jimmy running for public office here. I'm
curious to see if the microtransaction costs come down. Like you pay for the higher ticket to get into play, but then you can do some more stuff. Everyone's like, nah, that's
it's Activision. Come on, we know the answer. Yeah, it's a good question, but we know the answer.
My mind also went to inflation. Like the cost of everything's going up. You have to follow suit. But I'm curious
get caught up on these comments.
They have less people that pay for it, right? I'm sure they've done the research. They've tested this. Like, I think it's gonna be fine.
I'm sure they've run like focus groups or something, right, to see what the willingness to pay is.
I mean, the
LinkedIn
fact
user
is also
says,
like
"What
these
accrue?"
games get these games get discounted pretty quick, right? So you're getting the whole demand curve. You have Warzone, which is already free, and then you have the $7 SKU for people that like absolutely need to play day one. And then they know if there are cost conscious people, they're going to get them 2 months, 3 months down the line when a game gets cut on sale anyway. So it's kind of just smart retailing.
Matt says, I don't mind box games being $70. I do mind that game developers won't make anything new. It's a ripoff to spend $70 a year on Madden, COD, NBA 2K, etc. I mean, I think that is the reality, though, is no one has really pushed back, right? That's a great point, but no one has stopped buying these games. So, no one's speaking with their wallets.
Is it a ripoff? I just took my kids to see to the movies to see something. I forget what it was. And that cost me $65 for 2.5 hours to watch Chris Pratt put his hand out in front of the dinosaurs. Like, come on, get out of here. $70 for a year long of entertainment. I think this is where gamers got to start taking into advantage, taking to thought. Like, this is the world outside of free to play and Game Pass. And sometimes you got to pay for things you like.
Well, Chris, you teased the question I have for all of you after I get through these comments, because you mentioned Game Pass, and I think there's an interesting discussion there. Issei says, I've seen a lot of games going to 70 recently. It's pretty sad to see. I'm guessing it's because of inflation. I mean, the juice thinks it's inflation, so it's inflation. Adam says, Sigh, games are finally increasing in price. Just make Game Pass a better option. Look, Game Pass, I want to just catch up on comments, but my question for all of you, so you think about it, is what is the probability that Call of Duty eventually is part of Game Pass? Like, how many of you think that eventually we see COD in Game Pass, and maybe it justifies a price hike on Game Pass? I don't know. Issei says, also COD will get that box price as well as get those microtransactions if they have them in there, so it will be pretty profitable for them. I mean, they've made $30 billion just on Call of Duty, so clearly the franchise is profitable. Matt says it's just the same pig wearing different shade of lipstick every year, and we're being told you've never seen a pig like this. And yet people still continue to buy it. Again, speaking with their wallets.
Pig's fun to play with.
Wow.
Adam says, call me cheap, but unless it's a for sure solid game franchise or an absolute gotta have it game, I won't buy a game unless it's on sale or I have a gift card. Just out of curiosity, how many in chat and how many of you guys wait for COD to go on sale? Like, because usually 4 or 5 months after launch, they do discount it. Like, you get a little bit of a little bit of discounting on COD, usually months into the launch.
I've never bought COD on sale just because the benefit to buying it early is you get to use those guns, level them up, and then transfer them over to Warzone and have that fully leveled gun with all your attachments. I will say I haven't played Elden Ring yet because I am waiting for that to go on sale, but that's different. I'm just gonna knock that one out on my own free time.
Yeah, the competitive nature of this means get it day one, so you can play with everyone that gets it day one, and get that additional experience, or just get the edge as the game gets older and you've been playing for a little bit longer.
Yeah, it sucks when everyone has like the fully leveled up guns in COD, and you're just starting from zero. Adam says, why go free to play when they know people will pay for it every year? I mean, as a business model, I kind of hate. I mean, the capitalist in me loves it, but I kind of also hate that they're just relying on this idea of like, well, we know everyone's going to buy it anyways. We'll just keep shoveling it in, right? Like, we'll just, I don't know. Does anyone sort of see this?
The argument is you get a larger audience when you're free to play. They know a certain group of people will pay for it every year, but you can get conceivably 2, 3, 4x as many users by lowering that paywall.
So I think you're absolutely right, Jimmy. I think that's the genius of what Activision over the last 5 years has done. And I know we rip on Activision a lot, rightfully so, but with their Call of Duty strategy has been pretty like forward thinking. I mean, they were very early on in this, right? They made free to play with Warzone, so you have that on ramp into the main game, which actually ended up helping them sell more copies of the main game. And then they also put out mobile, and they've had arguably one of the better mobile shooters now for the last couple of years. So like they have that 3-pronged approach, which does get, like you said, Jimmy, the people who aren't willing to pay for the main game.
Guys, I will say chat's on fire today. I love that you guys are all active here. Sorry, I'm gonna get caught up here. Issei says, same here. I've learned to wait and keep my dollars in my wallet until I've seen the end game of the game, or at the end of the game. I mean, I don't blame you, Issei. The problem is the competitive nature of COD. I think that's what compels people. Adam says, Jimmy, they can't afford gas, so Activision knows they'll be home to play. that's actually, I wonder if we do see a gas price / inflation driven boom in gaming, same way we saw one with COVID, where maybe more people choose entertainment at home. I don't know. I think that's an interesting theory, Adam. Very interesting theory. It says LOL. Adam, I wonder if COD is so big as far as their player base that going free to play would not be beneficial for them to gain more people. They just know their player base is loyal for now and will buy this due to the hype regardless of the price. I think that's where we've all sort of agreed, right? That people will just buy it regardless. It will probably be 70, then it will be 60 a week later, as they says. I don't know. It's usually a few months, in my experience. Adam, 100% going to Game Pass. So let me stop here. How many of you think COD ends up on Game Pass, guys?
Eventually, yes.
What's eventually?
I don't know. And the interesting thing to me is it's a little bit like what Adam just said. To some extent, the larger the Game Pass subscriber base is, actually the less likely, the less it makes sense to put it onto Game Pass. For me, putting it onto Game Pass would be great as almost like a loss leader, where it's a game that a ton of people, 20, 30 million people buy every year. So you can convert a lot of those people to Game Pass by effectively allowing people to get it cheaper within Game Pass. But let's say you have 50 million subscribers to Game Pass, and the Venn diagram between people who are subscribed to Game Pass and people who would buy Call of Duty is basically a circle. Why would you give away a product for free that that they're going to buy if you don't give it away?
You would if you believe the long-term value of that customer as a subscriber is greater than the one-off purchase, or that you could raise the price of the pass and keep them as a long-term
the day Call of Duty goes on Game Pass, the price of Game Pass goes up. Or like
you think then for sure? Yeah.
If I may interject, as big as Modern Warfare 2 is, let's all ask ourselves the question: what's the biggest Call of Duty game to date, especially with the esports, mentality behind it? It's Black Ops. So why am I going to go free to play before I can do my remastered Black Ops? That's just silly. So, just drive this new pricing, get people used to it, and then get them all jammed up for the new Black Ops and charge 80 for that. It's just, that's the biggest Call of Duty title, period. End of story. So, yeah, I wouldn't go free to play.
I mean, Chris, but do you think it will end up on Game Pass?
I mean, 10 years from now, when we're tired of seeing Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 remastered.
What do you think, Paul? What's your prediction?
I think Microsoft does end up going the way of Netflix, in the sense that, Netflix, they've increased the cost of their content production by billions, but the Netflix subscription has only crept up in small increments. And I think that's sort of where Microsoft goes with Game Pass. As the subscriber base gets larger, it makes more sense to have people on this recurring revenue stream. You put COD in there, you justify a $2 increase every year, the same way sort of Netflix is doing it, and eventually end up with 150 million people on Game Pass at, pick a number, $24 a year as opposed to the 10 or whatever it is now. I think that's where it's probably where I would eventually move the business. I think Wall Street especially loves recurring revenue streams more than just about anything, right? Like the whole box copy model, I think but creates more uncertainty for analysts, for investors, for shareholders, right? I don't know. I think that's where they end up going. When? That's a good question. Not in the very near term future. Not in the next 2 or 3 years. I don't think. I think Microsoft goes slow on this.
The alternative, they could also put older Call of Duty games into the Game Pass. Like they do have other options too, not just like day and day. They could also put it in, 2 months later, so you get the diehards who like absolutely need to play it day one. But then you can there's a lot of in the middle strategies that they can do that aren't black or white.
Adam says, I've pre-ordered every COD except Vanguard. It's no fun being a Christmas noob. Yeah, there you go. That's so true. Samuel says, welcome, Samuel. Aren't they skipping the 2023 release of COD?
That's correct.
Go ahead. Yeah.
No, that's correct. They are doing every other year. So, yeah, again, jam up that profit margin. That's a good point.
That is a good point. And then maybe we do see an $80, right? Like if they realize that they're not going to get that revenue stream every single year. Adam says, but they're getting the user base with Warzone for free. True, mobile shooter still makes me laugh. Issei says Black Ops ? I'm not sure the question Issei, but
I think that was to Chris's question earlier.
Black Ops, as in the flavor of Call of Duty, if that's the question. Adam says maybe they added as a Game Pass premium, hike up the price to $20 to include certain titles, including COD, keeping it $10 for base Game Pass. I mean, that's a possibility, guys, right? To have different versions of Game Pass. I personally kind of hate that because I think Game Pass has to be dead simple. But I don't know. Do you guys like that? Do you like sort of a Game Pass premium that has COD and like the new games and the sort of the Game Pass base that just has the rest of the catalog? Chris, you like that?
I totally just did it yesterday with this new PlayStation subscription model. I was so anti, I'm not doing this. And I was like, oh, they have Tekken 2 on here. Here's my money. So, it's going to happen. Now I'm spending $120 a year for PlayStation. I don't need to. But, yeah, I can see how it works.
Well, I'm curious if you did the math in your head and said, okay, it's $120 a year. As long as I play 2 games on here, like 2 new games, it's worth it? Or does that...
I have a broken brain. I'm a gamer.
He just said Tekken 2. I mean, all right, we're good.
That's it. No, really. It was an impulse buy. It's like being at the supermarket. Oh, I want this now as I'm waiting for my food to get checked out. No, it was just there in front of me. And I think that works.
Now it's only one game and 80% of the second one now. It's $70 a game. So not even too
That's true, right? The Game Pass subscription starts to look even better. Peach VR says, hello. Peach VR, welcome. So great to see you. Issei says, imagine World at War in the Game Pass deal. I mean, the Game Pass is, I think, Microsoft's most interesting product going into the next 5 years. Like, I really think their gaming ambitions are going to live or die on Game Pass. I don't know if you guys agree or disagree with that.
100%.
Adam says, hey, since there's 2 Adams, can you throw in a last initial when reading? I keep going. I never said that. Oh, wait, never mind. Every single time. Adam R says, hey, absolutely, Adam. Adam R, I can do that. Yes. All right, guys, let's move on. I want to keep this going. We've got lots to talk about here. And next up, I thought was an interesting article on an intersection of, call it, culture and gaming, which we talked a lot about on this week's podcast with Chris. And this article, the headline was totally clickbait, but it worked on me. The headline here is T-Pain admits he's made more money gaming in the last 4 years than with music. It goes on to say that T-Pain has 845,000 followers on Twitch, so he does stream regularly. And the quote, it says, I'm making more money off of video games than I've made in the last 4 years, he admitted, just playing video games. It doesn't seem to matter that he's not very good because people keep tuning in and Twitch keeps the bankroll coming. There are definitely good players out there that make a ton of money, but I think the entertainment that comes from somebody like me being trash at it, that's just more valuable and more entertaining. Now, I don't know much about T-Pain or his music career, and so I'm not going to comment there. You guys know a lot more than I do.
I think his last song was like 15 years ago, so I don't know. Maybe
I was
his last 4 years isn't. But those royalties, those sweet royalties, keep coming.
Is this a statement on the music business or on the gaming business?
Or
I guess
T-Pain's career.
Let's start there. Ben, I don't know. Maybe start with you. Thoughts on this?
T-Pain was never hot on my Spotify playlist, but look, I mean, he of course he's gonna have a lot of followers. He's T-Pain, and he is hilarious. I mean, like as just a personality, so it's not really surprising here. Good content always wins.
Does he speak with the auto tune when he's doing his Twitch?
I have to imagine.
I just sniped someone.
he must. Actually, Jeff, that was pretty good. A question for you guys on this, though. Like, I've always thought that gaming, the more sports stars we saw get into gaming, it's felt a little bit like gaming is the retirement career for, athletes and entertainment people. Like, is this kind of proof that maybe gaming is the retirement plan for just about everyone who has, a very short career when they're younger, whether it's music or sports,
I feel like, is it even the part of the plan, or it's just like easy money? They're just like broadcasting what they would do otherwise, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Oh wow, I'm profiting off of this. This is great." I'm sure T-Pain doesn't take it very seriously. He just having fun.
Now, let me throw this in there. Who remembers when Civilization won a Grammy or an Oscar, for that matter? Civilization won an Oscar for best soundtrack. By the way, this is for you, right there, Paul.
I actually read
book.
That's so good.
Book. But no, I bring it up because Civilization 5, I believe, won a Grammy for best music, something or other, before they created a music genre, or award, which they just announced maybe about a week ago. T-Pain, I've seen him at Evo. He dresses up during Halloween as the one character from Tekken. He legitimately loves gaming. Wu-Tang Clan just got a track on the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles beat 'em up that's coming out tomorrow. I don't necessarily think it's a retirement plan as much as like this is a place where, guess what, video games have a lot of in there that makes it memorable. Music. Let's start bringing in the pros. And while I do love the indie world of, let's find some great tunes, but I mean, the reality is the more the music industry, which does get just shellacked, by way of what little money they make off of Spotify plays, let them grab that bag. And whether it's through Twitch or whether they're making music production for the games itself, I think we're going to see that intersection a lot more just common.
Chris, maybe a question for you or for Jimmy, because both of you, have experience in the space. Do you think the music world gives the gaming world the respect it deserves? And do stories like this sort of get music executives to take another look? Or do you think we're so past that and, every music publisher, every music exec, understands the gaming opportunity completely?
You want me? I'll go first on that, Chris. Personal opinion, of course. I think people in music really like themselves and they think very highly of themselves. And music has been the nexus of pop culture for as long as I've been alive, if not longer. And so I think that those that are, these are also artists and they're innovative and a lot of them are forward thinking. And so I think there are those in the music community that do see the opportunity of gaming, that are trying to get involved, that are trying to monetize their brand. But I wouldn't say that music as a whole yet has accepted gaming, even though gaming out earns music and cinema combined, right? That's the stat that I think we were throwing around 2 years ago when that was kind of made public. So yes and no, I guess. I can say that those that I've personally worked with that are in music and that want to be in gaming are very interested. They're very eager to do things, to explore their brand in the space and to figure it out. But I don't think you can speak on an industry-wide level yet.
Adam R says he's going to buy you a drink. I was not going to do that in his voice, Adam, with that Twitch money. Samuel says, I'd imagine that it's easier for a mainstream personality to gain a lot of traction quickly on Twitch. I think we've talked about it on this live stream, in fact, that Twitch is the place where you go to monetize your audience, not grow your audience. That there's other platforms like TikTok, that are better for growing your audience.
I think it also
Jimmy.
helps that these people have the support of Twitch, right? So they're getting that front page carousel placement. And like you said, Paul, they're able to promote themselves on other platforms. The one thing about this headline that I think we should remember is this is in comparison. This is T-Pain making a certain amount of money in gaming in a certain period compared to the amount of money that he's made in music in that same period. And he's not making music currently, right? So it's like Ice-T saying, I made so much on Law and Order, and I'm making way more in Law and Order than I'm making the same period in music. Ice-T hasn't rapped in 40 years, right? So this is not T-Pain saying he's made more in gaming than he's ever made in music, right? It's just in this hyper focused recent period here. But
I think
I was
gonna say, I think we all agree that he wouldn't have made as much money in gaming if he hadn't already made as much money in music. Right.
Absolutely.
Yes.
The last thing I'll add to that too is guys, I think what we're also seeing here with regard to, is this a retirement plan? I think this is the current day reality show. Maybe it's very easy for them to set up a camera, for them to have fun, cut loose. I'm not sure the lifespan of this, because I don't, it doesn't, not every famous person can just turn on a camera and make money on Twitch. It does require you to be entertaining, right? T-Pain saying that he's entertaining because he's so bad, but he's also a fun guy, right? He's fun to watch. He has guests on occasion, like the Steve-O thumbnail that we showed. So I think, it requires something more than fame. It does require personality and effort. And to that, I definitely tip my hat to T-Pain, right? Because it's hard to entertain people live for an extended period of time.
Yep. Issei says, I agree with Samuel. I imagine that they just have to tweet, hey, I'm live on Twitch now. Come hang out. The big fans will watch the stream. Yeah, no question. Twitch is a great place for them to monetize their existing following. Then they have the following instantly. Exactly, Issei. Totally agree here. All right, guys, let's move on. We've got more stuff to cover here. I want to get to everyone's favorite esport, the most important esport of all. Chris is going to love this story, and that is chess.
Damn it.
I threw this one in here just for you, Chris. And big moves in the chess esports world. MISFITS Gaming, so esports org MISFITS Gaming, signs chess grandmaster Hikaru Nakamura. So Hikaru finds a new home in MISFITS. Now, the reason that name might be familiar is TSM, another esports org, had previously signed Nakamura in August 2020, but they parted ways in June of 2021. And now, a year later, he has signed with MISFITS. He averages 10,000 viewers a stream. He's the most viewed chess influencer on Twitch. Guys, the question for you now that, I feel like when we talk about what is an esport, and I don't want to go back to that level of basic, but there's some check boxes, right? And is one of the check boxes that if you have esports orgs competing over talent, right? Like one org signing talent away from another org, do we now have to take this very seriously, right? Like, is that one of the boxes that says, okay, chess, legitimate esport, or is this a nothing story and good for Hikaru? But I'm curious. I was just drawn to the idea that a chess player was being not fought over, but signed from one esports org to the other. Chris, we got to start with you. Your thoughts on this?
Oh, no. Oh, here comes the hot take. No, I mean, look, we're going to go through a recession very soon. We're all going to start playing Monopoly. Someone's going to be really good at Monopoly, and now we're going to make that person esports, character. Like, just stop. At the end of the day, really happy for this guy. Go get yours. But it's just too niche of a market. And, at the end of the day, unless Queen's Gambit comes out with a sequel, the market outside of esports and gaming doesn't necessarily care, I don't think, or it's just not that big of enough of a market to justify perhaps, the financial investment into a chess streamer. I'm sure this gentleman is very entertaining. I'm sure he's super talented, clearly, but is that what's going to be having, a daily viewer ship that you can then put sponsorship money behind, and that translates to some real money out in the real world? I just don't think so.
It's interesting. I actually kind of agree with Chris, but for different reasons, or there's a point where I disagree. I agree with you that I don't think this is necessarily going to put chess on the map. What I think is this is misfits looking in their crayon box or in their tool shed and saying, hey, there's actually an audience here, a group of people here that we're not already reaching. Let's sign the guy because for the exact reason of our sponsorship sales might benefit because now we have a different demographic or a different, breadth of capabilities. So I'm kind of aligned with you, but I think for different reasons there. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw, to Chris's point, someone playing Monopoly or other niche games, niche communities. Doesn't mean that they're necessarily esports. Doesn't mean that they're not. And I'm open to being convinced that they are. But I think it's more about attracting new audiences and not just being stuck in first-person shooters or other types of more traditional games.
I don't know if I would call chess a niche game. I mean, it's definitely a game that everyone on the planet largely knows. Maybe it is definitely niche.
For any esport.
Yeah, it is definitely niche as an esport, I guess. But like everyone knows chess, so yeah. I mean, I think I would love to see more data. Like I would love, maybe like a Newzoo report or something like that with just around like the streaming data. Because I would be interested to see chess versus some of the other things that we consider less niche that maybe aren't.
Or a YouGov report.
Well, YouGov report would be better, but
we put our football hats on, guys. And I'm curious, do you think he's getting a bigger deal from Misfits than he got at TSM, like dollar-wise, right? Is he making more money with Misfits than with TSM? Or do you think because the hype around chess has sort of died down a little bit, to Chris's point, there's, Queen's Gambit sort of put chess on the mainstream map, that this is a smaller deal? Who here thinks it's a bigger deal than the TSM one?
It's probably larger if you consider sponsorship revenue and other earned opportunities. But as far as cash retainer, cash up front, I got to say it's definitely smaller. This guy went over a year without being signed and wasn't even signed for a full year in the first place. Great that he went to another tier 1 org, but the last I checked the Forbes rankings, I thought TSM was significantly higher than Misfits also on that. No disrespect to either of them. They're killing it respectively, but I don't think it was necessarily a lateral move. And also the timing, you can't argue against that timing. That's like, to your point, Paul, Queen's Gambit at its height when he was signed to TSM, not so much now, though. They did just come out with that. I hope I'm not stealing a story, but Netflix is coming out.
You are.
Oh, I'll shut up. I'll shut up then.
But it's okay.
Perfect transition.
Perfect transition. So smooth. Issei says, like Jimmy said, I think they're just expanding their reach. This is true. Samuel says, agree, Jimmy. I can see the chess enthusiast being a little bit older with more discretionary income. I'm sure there's data around that, and that's the kind of study that YouGov does. And when you're looking for, this is the kind of interesting thing. I talk about this all the time in terms of the actionable data, right? Like if you're a brand and you're like, hey, should we sponsor, Hikaru, right? Should we be putting our brand next to him? You would want to know something like this, right? Like, does his audience, are they older? Do they have more money to spend? It's one thing to guess. It's one thing to say, yeah, probably because it's chess, and it's another thing to actually know. But yeah, it's an interesting point. It definitely would have an impact. Sorry, Ben, go ahead.
Spot on, Paul. I mean, I'd say was it Sam's hypothesis about their older demographic, but they're probably not as many on Twitch by that same logic. So it's, it is, I think, to Jimmy's original point, it's expanding the circle of Twitch, people who are on Twitch and other things they might be interested in, other hobbies they may have. And I guess it's splitting hairs here, but is chess an esport? I know you had this conversation.
Oh my God.
I thought the video games thing, I thought video games had to be core. I get why esports companies are owning other content on Twitch, including competitive chess. But I
want to hear Chris's take. 'Cause I feel like we've all chimed in.
So I'll put it to you like this: the answer is no, because it causes a slippery slope where poker is played online. It is a game that you can play with other people, and you need skill. So are we now going to adopt that just to ensure that we can prove some kind of valuation for our company? No. I mean, it is a game. I'm glad that people are enjoying it, but to call it esport, I do think is a little bit of a stretch. However, we're constantly adapting the definition as we try to find our audience. So we can be creative now, but I do think 10 years from now we're going to be very confident what an esport actually is.
I mean, it sounds like you need to define a gate that excludes chess, right? If that's the belief. And so what is that gate, right? What does an esport have to have that chess does not have?
I guess the question is it the video game piece that you have a problem with, Chris, or is it the competitive piece? Because like someone who's streaming a single player game, is that an esport? Does it matter? Like for Twitch, I mean, we talk about it in terms of the gaming industry and digital entertainment. Like, I guess, does it matter how we strictly define esport?
I would put speed running as an esport before I put chess, only from the perspective of I can take a chessboard, which I actually have behind me somewhere, and I can play that without a video game console or a PC. That would be my gatekeeping. Can I play it without using a video game console or PC? Yes or no?
And within the YouGov dictionary, we describe it as organized competitive video games. Like that's what an esport is. And then gaming content, streamed or otherwise, is a different animal.
Got it. I'm totally fair with having those like very like formulaic definitions, and I don't even disagree with them. But then I come back to like, does it matter? Like why do we have to define those, right? Like,
when we're talking about Twitch, they definitely own all of it for sure.
Exactly.
They can do quality broadcast. They can own, various talent across X, Y, and Z, and do it well.
Yeah, I mean, as a business, you can be in different business lines. Like there's nothing stopping you, but I think the definition is important, just so that when we talk about it, we're all sort of on the same page. Like these definitions do matter from a ability to communicate as an industry effectively, I think. All right, guys, I want to, before we move on, having Ben here is obviously a huge treat. For those of you who don't know, Ben's at YouGov. YouGov's a tremendous supporter of this live stream, and they produce the absolute best data on gamers, games, esports fans all around the world. I want to do what we call a YouGov Insights segment today. It's a lot of fun. We have data from Ben, from YouGov, a study they actually did, and we're going to talk about it, and it's a treat every time. So I'm going to bring it up here. And this is everyone's, I think, favorite current topic, NFTs.
The one that hurts the most right now.
The one that hurts the most right now. We covered on this show. We cover it on Meta Business, which everyone should go subscribe to if you're not already. It's a show I do with the Juice, talking about NFTs and the metaverse and gaming. But I'm going to bring this up, Ben, and I'm going to let you drive this here. So I'll bring the first slide up. So the headline here, the title here, fan interest in NFTs. And the first question asked is, how much do you know about NFTs? Go ahead, Ben.
So there was kind of the question here is, recently NFTs have become a topic of interest on a scale from 1 to 5. How would you rank your knowledge of NFTs? So the grand takeaway here, the red line are esports fans. Then we're looking at traditional sports fans, which was a combination of MLB, NHL, NFL, NBA. And then also looking at Gen Pop. So, I mean, really the takeaway is in the trend. So the first question is people who said they've never heard of NFTs between kind of like Q4 of last year bleeding into January and then the last 3 months. And we see across the board, it's down, right? But just looking at the order of things, esports fans the entire time were least likely to agree that they've never heard of NFTs. And today, only 7% of esports fans say they've never heard of NFTs, which is kind of a negligible number. Overall, though, there's 28% of all Americans who still say they've never heard of NFTs. But I think that's a pretty incredible takeaway, too. Like, there's only a quarter of Americans, right? It's low. Yeah. And then we look at the flip side. So there's a 5-point scale, right? We saw the question at the bottom of the page. So knowledgeable of NFTs is anyone who says they have at least some knowledge of NFTs, all the way up to consider themselves an expert. And so now a full 2/3 of esports fans consider themselves in this bucket, up from 55% towards the end of the year. And then similarly, like a quarter of all Americans were kind of there, and now it's up to a third. So, and then kind of the big driver here, we see obviously like esports fandom is a really high indicator of knowledge about NFTs, but also sports fandom and in age, being 18 to 34 versus older than that, is also a very high indicator of just general NFT wisdom.
I mean, is it fair to conclude from this slide, Ben, that if you're an esports org, your audience is going to receive any kind of NFT drop that you may do, or any kind of NFT partnership, better than the call it the rest, right? Or better than even a sports team?
Not necessarily. All the sense they're knowledgeable. Maybe knowledgeable because they hate it.
True.
We'll go into another slide here where it's like I'm more likely to buy an NFT from my favorite teams, but this is just general knowledge of the space. I was actually just having a drink before this with Corey Hollingsworth over at Arterra. I know you guys know him, and we were talking about NFTs and esports and gaming, and he was the first to say that a lot of esports fans and gamers, they think it's BS. Like they're not seeing the utility yet. And we all know gamers and esports fans they're vocal. So I don't know. I think adoption is a way different question, and it's gonna be way segmented by like the types of games and gamers that people are into.
I'm curious, before we move on, I have a question. I mean, we've seen a lot of sponsorships of esports, of crypto companies and NFTs from esports teams. Do you think part of the reason why there's so much knowledge of NFTs in the gaming space is because of that? Or do you think the sponsorships were because these sports team or the esports teams have this kind of data, they're doing the sponsorships? Like, is it which is the cause versus the correlation?
I mean, hard to say cause, but I think we kind of go into it on this slide, actually. So the two questions here: I've already purchased an NFT on the left, or people who have already purchased or have looked into purchasing an NFT. So expressed some interest, done some hunting, or some learning. I think that age is a huge corollary, and then there's something about sports fandom here that that we see as well. And then layer on like the digital first nature of gaming, and these kind of being like. There's generally a techie persona that comes out in gamers. So these people we're reading the newsletters that talk about NFTs and crypto and things like that more regularly than someone who's not into gaming or sports or the like. So that's what we see here, right? So esports fans are 7x more likely to have ever purchased an NFT than the average American. And compared to even sports fans between the ages of 18 and 34, an esports fan is 2x more likely. And kind of a similar trend for people who have like looked into it. I think it's amazing that half of esports fans or viewers have kind of done some research on the space. And it's pretty incredible.
I'm curious how many of those were the free 100 Thieves drop. Right. I think that was an interesting one. But also, to me, it's interesting because you mentioned sports being one of those sort of, where there's correlation, sports of any kind, esports and otherwise. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's just like the psychology around collectibles and sports, or, like maybe there's some of that playing into here, that people are just used to that.
I think so. There's already a history of taking some ownership of the game through, cards, and now it's digital cards or clips or, whatever NFTs evolve to be, right? Like we're living in it live. But yeah, so I think the kind of just the practice of trading things is more active among sports fans.
And by the way, for you guys in chat, like throw out questions, if you have questions for Ben on the stuff here. And also, Jimmy, Jeff, Chris, don't hesitate to jump in here. Let me move to the next one, Ben.
One quick question. What was that population of your total survey here that were non-sports fans?
This was run. Yeah, this No, this is a Gen Pop sample, so there were some non-sports fans. I'd have to look kind of what the breakout was of like.
I'm just curious how much Matt Damon, this is all his fault, but I am curious, like, just how effective that Super Bowl, push for crypto advertising was versus the non-sports fan, to understand, maybe they heard something about BPO on CNN or something. That's what I'm curious about.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we could look at it in the profiles data set from YouGov. Could trend it back
Kind of
to
data
kind of
That would actually be good to look at, like this data before and after the Super Bowl, because that was such a big moment, like when a lot of people kind of like, not that they first heard about crypto, but it was like a conversation starter when you're sitting around with people where it just became everyone was talking about it.
Definitely.
Let me flip to the next one here, Ben.
This was just looking at, so where the other one was roll up across the last 7 months. This is just looking at those 2 time periods again from the first slide and seeing growth. It's same question as before. So bought or have looked into buying an NFT. We see like not, while the esports fans are still 5x more likely than Gen Pop, the growth is fairly flat, with 3 points up. The interesting one here, I think, is the sports fans 18 to 34, having the biggest bump. But all these, there's not, I wouldn't say these are huge trends overall, but definitely, positive growth across the board.
I talk about the idea of the living data at YouGov. I mean, this is the kind of trend that you guys can tease out, right? Like, because the data is updated over time. And it seems to me that, like, I assume this is statistically significant and everything, right? So the growth, the trend is consistent across the board. You can draw conclusions. Right? There's only 5 months difference between these 2 points.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's an interesting perspective, right? That's not a long period of time.
I would also love to see it, given we have these trends and you guys are updating this constantly. Like, it would be really cool to see, like, are you currently looking at or buying NFTs? Because that would give you, I bet we would see some real like peaks and valleys.
No, let me tell you, Jeff. So I looked at this first monthly, and the sample was too low for me to kind of report that here. So that's why I did the aggregate the way I did. But looking at the trend monthly, you do see a huge fall off, around March. That's just like wild. And the sample, again, is a bit too dicey to kind of be confident on. But it was there.
Interesting. Cool. Let's get to the next one here. Team NFTs. I think that's interesting.
Yeah, last one. So this question is, if you scroll down a bit, it's on a 5-point scale. To what extent
I'm more likely to purchase?
Disagree? Yeah, I'm more likely to purchase an NFT from one of my favorite teams and from another source. So this is kind of drawing some causality to what types of NFTs people are into, and is it coming from a team matter? And we see among esports fans again, they are a lot more interested. In general, if it comes from a team, but even over the last these 2 time periods, the last 7-8 months, that is overall has increased. But again, to the point I just made, Jeff, it did come down this past month. Just didn't happen on the slide, but still, over the last 3 months, it's up from the 3 months prior. So I thought it was interesting here. Again, we see the sports fans also, sports fans 18 to 34 bumping up. So here's where we can really see. But age is has a bigger impact than being a sports fan alone.
Doesn't this slide, in my mind, totally debunks some of the fear that exists out there around gamers and NFTs? And I think what I'm seeing here is maybe there's an aversion to NFTs in games amongst the mainstream gamer population, like doing an NFT as a weapon skin in Rainbow Six. Where there doesn't seem to be an aversion in this data, at least, is if you're a fan of a team, you are likely to buy an NFT from them, or to at least to purchase an NFT from your favorite team.
Well, it really says you're more likely to purchase that NFT than from another source. So it's still not necessarily saying you will, but like if you're gonna buy an NFT, you'd be a higher considerer of one that comes from your favorite team.
it almost says something about the strong like nature of the fan bases of these.
Right.
I see the point you're making, Paul, but I think that with Ben's distinction, I don't know if it's as linear of a conclusion as what maybe you were saying, but it strikes me as like it's just like people. It shows the passion that these fan bases have to their teams.
Yeah, I mean, for those that are listening and not watching, like an 8-point change on this esports fan / viewer, that's massive, right? They're incredibly susceptible in 5 months. The way I read that too is aligned with Jeff, which was these guys are strong fans of the brands they follow, but they're susceptible or rather trusting of those brands and what those brands are trying to sell them, right? So take that, for NFTs, I wonder if that correlates to other sponsorship or other sales outside of that, but fascinating nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, we have seen from other data I've shared here around just like esports fans very highly over-indexing for agreeing on I'm more likely to buy from a brand if they sponsor my team in general. So there is a strong loyalty to teams and then the brands support them.
Maybe Ben or anyone on the panel who wants to take this question. Isay says, if there will be an adoption of NFTs, then do you think it's been delayed by recent events, or do you think it's just a dip? But what do you guys think?
I mean,
adoption of NFTs, let's keep it specific to esports.
I think it has to slow down, but maybe that's just my emotions getting in the way.
Here's a question to everybody. How's Top Shot doing?
Not so great in terms of trading volumes and stuff like that.
And so when I see Top Shot in the audience that they have, to get a breakdown as to the younger generation who's getting those things, because I still do firmly believe that an esports team, they have to monetize with something. And I will, buy something to support my team. And hopefully it becomes something valuable one day, but not necessarily because I'm trying to, capitalize off of it, just support. So I do think these numbers are legit from an esports viewership, especially from the adoption standpoint. Sure, they may be yelling and screaming online about how they hate play to earn or whatever it is they want to complain about. But, I wouldn't mind having an optic something that I can say is mine. Totally cool.
And this is where I think the data is always interesting, right? Having YouGov data, you break through the noise of like the loud person or people on Twitter complaining and try and figure out what is the actual reality on the ground, right? Which can be sometimes totally different, because in gaming, we all know there's a very loud minority that loves to complain, and it's not always representative of what's actually going on. So, Ben, this is always one of my favorite segments. I know for people who are looking for more in-depth data or data on something specific to their business, you can absolutely reach out to Ben. Right on LinkedIn or anytime, or any of us. Also, go to yougov.com/BOE. I'm putting it in all the chats that will allow me. I know this will be there eventually, right, Ben? If it's not there already, I actually have to check.
Yeah, we'll get this up there for sure.
So if you guys want to dig into this in more detail, you want to spend more time with it, absolutely go to yougov.com/BOE. Ben, thanks so much for that segment. It's always interesting.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Let's. I've got a couple more stories before we wrap up here, and I want to get to them. And one of them, guys, is the Game Pass story. So I probably should have put it next to the other one, but I definitely think it's worth discussing because we did touch on Game Pass and some interesting news in that world. Riot's Xbox Game Pass deal could save players over $1,500. I thought very catchy title. So League of Legends developer Riot Games dropped something major at the Xbox and Bethesda Games Showcase. And basically what they said was all of the champions in League and Wild Rift, as well as all of the agents in Valorant, if you have a Game Pass subscription, all of them will be free. So a huge amount of content there that they're including in Game Pass. It says 160 champions in League of Legends. I didn't even know we were up to that many. 19 agents in Valorant. So they did the math here, and they figured out that everything included has a value of just over $1,500. Does anyone think this is good? We talked about putting COD on Game Pass being potentially game-changing. is this maybe even bigger? Like, or I don't know, or is this again a nothing story and just another sort of the many things that are going to be on Game Pass?
It's definitely not a nothing story. I mean, it's also definitely, I don't think, bigger than COD going to Game Pass, but I think it's important. They're just adding more like incremental value to this subscription. I'm curious how much you guys think Microsoft had to pay Riot for this.
Right. That's the true question, because I actually disagree with the second part of your statement, Jeff. I think it's a huge deal. I think a lot of people grind really hard to unlock these characters. I think by making them instantly available, that there's a huge now incentive to get Game Pass for diehard gamers or for people that have been, like you have to save up for that in-game currency or pay for it to unlock certain characters, and then you have to grind again to get the next one and the next one. And now you can have it just by getting the Game Pass. It's really, what did Microsoft pay for that? I think is the true question. I'm curious, maybe if it's a rev share based off of the amount of signups that they get directly related to this. If Riot was clever in that regard and had faith in its product, or if it was just a flat fee because it's easy, it's the first of its kind, and let's just take it for this, and that's a win.
And also, I imagine if you stop using Game Pass, you lose all those players, right? No, Chris says no.
I thought it said in the article.
It was confirmed that if you get it, you keep them, even if you use Game Pass.
Because that would be good. Because that would be great. That would be great retention.
That was confirmed.
Yeah. Oh wow.
No, I read the small print because I thought this was coming to console, which is why I got excited for a second. I was like, oh, fantastic! We're opening up to a non-PC audience, and so F1 racing. I love it. So I'll pose a question back to you guys in terms of, Game Pass is this more of a North American audience? Because I still question, with LCS numbers not necessarily growing year over year so exponentially, how big is League of Legends really? And maybe this is something where Riot's like, hey, we need to really up our own numbers to get more people to play our games. Because, again, I've grinded League of Legends. And I was like, I give up. I can't do this anymore. But I'm not the market.
This is the famous question we always ask: who benefits more?
Right.
Here?
Seriously.
And I don't want to answer first. So who?
No, Jeff, you jumped the gun on it. Go ahead.
Definitely, I think Microsoft. It's always the answer is always Microsoft. They always benefit more. No, I think just what we said. I don't think many people who are on Game Pass are going to start playing League of Legends because they can level up.
Right.
I think you will see people join Game Pass because of what Jimmy just said. Hey, I needed to grind or I needed to spend a bunch of money. I'll just join Game Pass instead. Thus, Microsoft wins. But I'm very curious to hear what you guys think.
I think Riot benefits.
Well, they benefit, but you think they benefit more?
Yeah.
Really?
You think they're going to get a ton of new players through this?
North American audiences, 100%. I mean, Valorant, as big as it is, isn't growing as fast as we like it to be. Apex is still really pushing. First-person shooter market is very congested. Team fight tactics. I mean, is that something that we talk about at the bar? No. It's just a lot of the titles. While I'm excited about them having an opportunity to open it up to more people, I do think it opens up to a lot more people versus your hardcore PC audience.
David says, is it consensus that Riot is working on a League of Legends MMO for release in the next few years? Yes. It's not just consensus, it's confirmed, David. Confirmed by Riot. So absolutely happening. David says, the thing about cloud gaming, sub-libraries, and Epic Store is that they're, for new entrants, not enough value prop to remove the sunk cost of those who already play/own. True. I mean, every user is going to do their own math, right? Like, if you already own half the champions in League, does the extra $10 a month on Game Pass, is it worth it for you if you've already unlocked half of them or 3/4 of them? That feels like a sort of a case by case basis kind of question. You say, sorry, go ahead, Chris.
No, I'm looking right now at monthly player counts, and the numbers are very much plateaued. So this may be more. The last 30 days, 126 million monthly players. That's a lot of people.
Oh, that's it. Just 126 million.
Right.
There's a lot of games that are bigger than that.
But that 120, is the same number since as far back as December 30th, 2020. So what's up?
But like you reach like the the whole audience. Like, how many more people do you expect to get?
No, this is why we had to ask the question.
There's no game that's bigger. You're not going to get.
But that's why they did the move, because they need to find some growth.
I also think every year you have younger kids that are aging up into the sophistication and the ability and growing in their own gaming journeys that will start to adopt the game. So I don't know if I agree that like there's only a certain amount that you can ever capture. I will say, as far as who wins, it's a sliding scale. It depends on how much Microsoft paid, if anything. The more Microsoft paid, the more Riot won, right? And I think there's great arguments on both sides, but it completely depends on what that arrangement was. And without knowing that, it's hard to crown a winner.
Can I give you guys my tinfoil hat theory? Sorry, go ahead, Ben. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, are there longtime league players that are like pissed about this? You know, they did the grind. They earned all those players, and now like someone can come in and just buy access.
Those are the worst kind of people. It's like the same people that are
student loans.
Exactly. It's like, oh, you're getting rid of student loans. Like, I paid mine off. Okay,
they'll get a free digital title though. They'll get like a OG, title, and that'll make it worth it for some reason.
Guys, my tinfoil hat theory, and I'm curious what you guys think of this. Can we assume that Microsoft is not taking a loss on this in some way, right? In other words, that if they believe the average length of a Game Pass customer is, pick a number, 2 months, because people subscribe and then they cancel, right? And the value of that customer is therefore $20, that they're not paying Riot more than what they believe is the average value of that customer to them, right? This is not a loss leader for Microsoft in some way to grow Game Pass. I'm taking that as an assumption, right? And so therefore, Microsoft's paying a relatively small amount to Riot, second assumption. But if that's true, if both of those assumptions are true, does this maybe say that Riot's monetization of their game is maybe worse than what everyone thinks, right? Like, yes, it costs $1,500 to buy all these champions, but maybe the average spend of a league player is only like $3, right? Like maybe on average, people spend only a very, very small amount. And therefore, what they get from Microsoft is greater than the average spend on for the average user on champions. Do you guys follow what I'm saying here?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a free-to-play game, so you're probably right that like the average league player, probably doesn't spend anything, and then even the people who do spend probably don't spend all that much. You probably have a very small percentage of whales that maybe spend like a ton, but I don't think the average player spends that much.
So maybe this is a bit of a monetization bailout for Riot's bulk of players who maybe don't spend that much money on the game directly, but may see value in Game Pass, and therefore, you see what I'm saying?
I would say that it's one of the rare. I mean, I think we covered a very similar story where I forget what it was, but it was also Game Pass being given away alongside. I think it was like maybe it was a Comcast subscription. And we said, I think it's like there are instances where it can be win-win-win, right? Like I think this is a win for Microsoft. Yeah. I think it's a win for Riot. And I think it's a win for players, except for the few people that grinded every hero and they're like, oh, I just wasted like 40 years of my life. So yeah, those people lose. But I think everyone else wins.
They probably weren't very happy anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
The only thing I want to add, and it's worth noting, is this is a digital good. Right. It's not like Riot is out of pocket any longer on any of this. So at the end of the day, you have Microsoft potentially and likely exchanging dollars. You have players exchanging dollars. You have Riot that's just sitting on IP that everyone wants and everyone wants to pay for. So I get the argument, Chris, about the plateaued users. I think it's a great argument, especially when you pull up the data in front of us. We're like, hey, this isn't just 6 months. This is 2 years. But what are they out really? They've already paid to develop these legends, these characters. All they're doing is finding a new way to monetize them. So I get also Paul's argument, but it's just like, hey, we tried one thing. It worked for a long time. Let's try something different, right? Why not? What do we have to lose? Literally nothing. We're just trying to find more revenue or rather like kind of look in the couch cushion and see if there's a couple coins in there.
Chris, just to pick into your point a little bit, because I think I disagree with your premise. Do you think that there will be more people who have the Game Pass subscription that never played Riot's games that say, hey, because I have Game Pass, I'm going to start playing these games that were already free to play? Or
100%.
do you think it's the people that, hey, I already play, I'm in this league ecosystem, I have 120 million people. There's probably a lot of them that are like what Jimmy said, I don't want to grind, I don't want to spend money, I will spend the $15 to join Game Pass, and then Microsoft's making some assumptions around how long they can keep them. Because I think it's way more the latter than the former. But
no, I think it's the former. I think it's the first, because at the end of the day, we've all stopped talking about Dota 2. You know, I mean, literally people were going to Dota 2 because they get all the champions for free. Now you just said, hey, guess what, guys? You can have it all over here too. So outside of the big esports tournament, hey, League of Legends now just leveled the playing field with Dota in terms of I have all the characters for free. And again, tie into your Arcane and all these other, you know, and I'm always the guy who's always pushing, what's the mainstream play here? How do we get the normies in here? Now you have people who are playing Arcane, then Wild Rift, now going to Game Pass. You might get a whole new audience.
It'll be interesting to see. I just want to catch up on comments, guys. Isai says, in response to David, I think so. They have job postings up on their website for it and says that they're working on one. Yeah, again, on the MMO, totally confirmed. David says, gotcha, thank you. Hardware Barbecue says, wow, more people. Hardware Barbecue, welcome. You missed so much good show if you just got here. Isai says, no problem. Samuel says, I think they both need each other, and both companies have the foresight to see that. Remove friction to access more content will increase the amount of gamers. All ships rise with the tide.
Yep.
I mean, no question, right? Like, this is a win-win on all sides. It's just always interesting to dissect, Samuel, like, who's getting the extra penny more, who benefits a little bit more, right? I mean, that's always the interesting conversation. Isai says just 126 million people.
It's a pretty crazy number.
A lot of people. I wonder how many people who have Game Pass have a PC as well, or is League on console as well? League is not on console. Riot is, at least for a long time, was notoriously PC only. So, I mean, but that doesn't, I mean, Game Pass has a PC offering. I don't know how popular it is relative to the full offering or the console offering. Like, I'm not sure how their subs break down, but they do have a PC offering. Sorry for the stupid question. You say no stupid questions here. It's all good. All right, guys. I have one more story. I want to end on this one.
We doing a lightning round?
No, we did YouGov Insights today.
So? Why can't we do it? What? No lightning round. I was ready. I thought that for sure we were going to do a lightning round with this all-star Thanos crew.
It is this is
Infinity
Stones
of esports.
This is the all-star cast. It really is. No, I have a Netflix story that I wanted that Jimmy. I had to shuffle around because Jimmy jumped the gun, of course, and
he's been doing that a lot lately, I think.
Hey.
The headline here: Netflix announces games tied to its popular shows, including The Queen's Gambit, Shadow and Bone, and more. Obviously, we're going with the chess esports theme on this episode. But Netflix announced new titles coming to their gaming service, and a few of them are tied to their shows. So specifically, The Queen's Gambit, Shadow and Bone, and Too Hot to Handle. They have 22 games available right now. They plan to have 50 by the end of the year. Now, the Queen's Gambit chess game will let players that say enter Beth Harmon's world and take chess lessons, play matches, and compete against friends. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds kind of like a chess game, like it's just chess.
Except there's drinking and drugs. If you saw the show,
all right? Now that would be, if they play it this way, then that would be an esport.
That's it. What do you guys think? We've talked about Netflix's gaming ambitions, and I'd love, especially Ben and Chris, to hear your thoughts on Netflix's gaming strategy, whether you think it's the right one, the wrong one, and specifically to this article, like, what do you make of tying or making games tied to their existing show IP?
I mean, if Riot can do it the other way around, why shouldn't Netflix try it? TV show first and then game second. But I have no stats, or I'm keeping a track on how many people have been using the Netflix gaming service. Like, is that growing in popularity? I don't know.
Good question, right? They don't charge for it. It's included. So it sets, I think, kind of a low bar for Netflix, right? Because they don't need to report
I don't even know the basics
I mean-
about like how you access it or play the games. Honestly, I should.
I think you just
Chris,
download them on the store, right? But then you need a Netflix account, maybe. I'm not sure if you need to go into the Netflix app first.
So it's the Netflix app, and again, look, funny story. 2010, I made an Insert Coins video game on our website as kind of a placeholder for, hey, this thing's coming, and it was like a Smash TV clone, and it brought people in back then. Today, Exploding Kittens is a really interesting IP to basically call their own. And as long as, look, I know we like to talk about, we're past the console wars, but it's a really smart play to get people to, it's an IP that they're familiar with, throw the game in. I don't have the numbers either. I was just scouring the interwebs to see what kind of numbers are out there. I don't see many, but I will just say, just from passerby conversations, Exploding Kittens as a video game that they have to play on Netflix, where a lot of people are playing on or watching Netflix on their iPads. Cool. It's just another service.
Do you think we start to take Netflix seriously as a game publisher? Right now, this is games that are exclusive to Netflix. It doesn't feel like just right. Do we start thinking of Netflix in the same? David made a comment here, which I'll bring up, but like, rip the days of folks speculating over Netflix acquiring Zynga. Right? Does this news today make you? Can we conclude, to David's point, that they will not acquire another company? They seem to want to go on their own, make their own games, right? Like do their own thing. And this is not just like what can we bolt on to our Netflix subscription? That there maybe is real interest in sort of creative, a creative success in gaming, not just, does it add more Netflix subscribers?
I still don't see it the way they're doing it. Like, I just don't know when you're making these mobile games that are effectively, there's literally millions and millions of them that are in the store that are free to play. Like, what do you get out of that as a Netflix subscriber? The games are not good enough yet where no one's going to join the Netflix subscription because the games are there. Like, I think I love the fact that they're tying it in with their IP of their shows, but why not just, why gate it to the people who have the Netflix subscription? Why not just make it so that anyone can play it? Because let's say I don't have a Netflix subscription, but I've heard about Queen's Gambit because I live in the world and everyone knows about Queen's Gambit. I play the mobile game and then I join the subscription because it's like I really like this IP. Like, I just don't know that gating it behind the subscription is going to do much for them. They're not going to be able to charge more, and I guarantee you no one on earth is subscribing to Netflix because they can play a free-to-play mobile game that
I don't think it's for either of those reasons. Sorry, I just don't think it's for either of those reasons. It's to keep people on Netflix, not on Netflix.
That part.
Existing people, right? So it's like these are the same people. No one's going to get Netflix to play the Queen's Gambit video game. I agree with that completely. But you will lose someone on Netflix to go play a different game on Apple Arcade or anywhere else. So it's just about keeping their attention and staying in front of them.
But why? So if that's the point, why does it have to be gated behind the subscription, right? Like, it can be free for anyone because then you can get more people in addition to the people that already are wanting.
I think that's a good argument. I agree with you there. I think it's for attention keeping, but yeah, if it's just for attention.
I thought the argument you were going to go down, which I actually was going to concede a little bit, so I'm glad maybe you didn't go in this direction, was that maybe it's a retention tool overall because it's like these mobile games can often be like very addicting. So maybe you get someone playing the Queen's Gambit mobile game and now they're like, wow, I play this 45 minutes a day. Like, I don't want to lose access to this. So now I'm not going to unsubscribe from Netflix. So maybe it's not bringing people into the subscription, it's keeping them from leaving the subscription.
Right.
So I just convinced myself, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah, no, and I'll double down on the retention play from the perspective of with those IPs being their own and how many people have multiple accounts that they share with other people. This is a way to stop that. How much money do they spend to make The Irishman? They're probably spending a whole lot less to make a little mobile video game to ensure that they're not losing people, to whatever, piracy, what have you. And then my last point to this is what's going to happen when Squid Game comes out? There are some real, truly valuable IP that they can play with. So I'm all for it.
They need to move faster is my only criticism, right? This game is way too late. The Squid Game, hopefully, not since their season 2's confirmed, that's when they can move on.
Let me just get caught up on comments here, guys. Issei says we can have both a lightning round and YouGov insights. He said we could.
We can have everything here. We can do it all.
For the next one, we'll do that. David says, I read that comment. He says, they may be curious about them for fans of those shows. Absolutely. But I think that's Jeff's point. It potentially draws people in who may not have a subscription. Isai says those who have stopped their sub. Yeah. And I think that's the retention point everyone's making. Guys, my take on this is, I hate that it gets glossed over, and it's my criticism of the whole play to earn space. Like, it's not just good enough to say we're going to make games, right? Like, it's not good enough to just say we're going to make a Queen's Gambit game. The game has to be good, right? And it has to be fun. And taking that as just like a fact or like an assumption that we're making, I think is too big of an assumption to make, right? Historically, even if you look at games made for movies, can we name 2 or 3 that are good? Like, most of them have really been pretty bad. Games adapted from movies. I have to believe games adapted from TV shows probably not that good either. And so, like, I'm not convinced that Netflix can make good enough games to have any impact whatsoever.
Well, so I just glossed through a short article on Variety about Netflix from 2 days ago, and I mean, what they're saying is they're taking it slow because they want to get it right. Which makes sense. And yeah, no, it is tricky to adapt a show or a movie into a good game. There's been a lot of failures.
Arkham City.
Yeah, Arkham City, Enter the Matrix. Anything.
But
Star
Ben,
Wars.
you make a great point, though, that taking it slow seems to be the right strategy, because there's a lot of ways for them to mess this up, right? But I hear the description of the Queen's Gambit game, and I thought the show was very good. The game sounds really boring. I mean, I don't know. Like, it's taking chess lessons with Beth Harmon, and I mean, like, sounds kind of boring. I don't know if that's a game I'm just going to be like, oh my God, I can't wait to pour 1,000 hours into this. I mean,
I'm shocked that Paul's not into the mobile game. Like, I would have thought you'd be all over this.
That's why,
don't get me started.
Point, you got to take a shot before each of the lessons with her, right? Because that's the show. Just had it.
Do they mail you like the Quaaludes or something like
that? Guys, that brings us to the end of this week's show. It absolutely flew by. I just want to say special thank you to 2 people who are very, very important, have been both very critical in their own way to the success of this show. So to Chris and Ben, thank you guys so much. Just plug your own stuff, please. Like, can you guys just let people know where they can find or follow you? Because there's always interesting things coming from both of you. Chris, maybe start with you.
Just Chris of Coins, Twitter, Instagram, Chris Laporte. Look for me on LinkedIn, and just, no filter Chris is pretty much my mentality. I see what's going on in Vegas, like to talk about what's going on in the esports space, and happy to share those thoughts, with no filter.
Chris doing some really cool things in Las Vegas, and you and I should catch up, my friend. Ben Pero, 7 letters, LinkedIn would be the best way to reach me, and always happy to just talk about anything in general, but also about research and all the cool stuff that YouGov is sitting on. A lot of different ways that we can help all different types of companies.
I thank both of you so much again for all the support over the it's been now almost years. So really thank both of you guys for all the support. It means a lot, so much to me, so much to us. Jimmy, Jeff, thank you guys as always. To everyone in the chat, thank you guys. Just a couple of housekeeping points. Make sure to follow Business of Esports everywhere, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Instagram, on YouTube, on TikTok, you name it, on every single platform you can find our content. Make sure to subscribe to our newsletter if you haven't. It's great. Tens of thousands of you get the newsletter every single day. I write takes for every single newsletter, so you get my hot take every day in your inbox, and would really appreciate that. Don't forget, guys, the most important thing, the future is fun. We will see all of you next week.